So a little bit about what I want to kind of talk about is Zendesk in general. So Zendesk was started in Copenhagen and actually moved to the United States. But what we do is we're a platform that brings customers and businesses closer together. And now I think it's going on its own. And so we have over 50,000 customers across the globe, and we have success resources in each region to kind of support resources in those regions to support each of those customers. If you don't know anything about Zendesk, Zendesk is a kind of an API-first platform, the customer service platform that is focused on kind of three pillars: customer support, customer self-service, and customer engagement. And it's all kind of has this foundation underneath this apps framework that allows you to kind of extend each of these areas as well. So, but don't let me kind of talk to you about it, and here's where everything kind of falls apart because no audio. Oh. Go. Here's what he's saying, because Mr. Jay-Z is going to tell you about it. The word short. So essentially what that means is we're a support company. So what I wanted to kind of say here is that we're a support company first. So what actually came out of that is when we started to think about customer success, we wanted to make sure everything was rooted in kind of that rooted in that customer support life cycle. So what we did was when we spun up customer success, we looked at kind of the problems we were having first by looking at the data we have from customer support. What we found out was that most of our customers, after we looked at ticket volume and we looked at customer lifecycle, most of our actual problems or tickets that were coming in were in the first 90 days after purchase. So a customer had just gone through this very high-touch sort of exercise with a sales rep and a sales engineer where everybody was listening to them and giving them all these sort of these answers and returning their calls. And then all of a sudden, the customer goes to implement this beautifully simple software, and they're kind of on their own to do it. So what happens is we actually get a flood of backlog from into our actual support organization who are faced with implementation questions, and our advocates have absolutely zero context on what the customer is trying to do. And so what we did was we kind of said, okay, well, this is creating a terrible experience for the customer as well because all these tickets are coming in, there's a whole bunch of questions, customers are having to repeat everything that they just walk through with the sales engineer during the sales cycle. But what was actually kind of driven out of this was kind of our first actual program of customer success. And that program is actually called Launch Guidance. So what we did was we spun up a program that essentially helped, for free, that's part of the package, that actually helped you get your higher touch model and kind of have that higher touch when customers needed it most, namely the first 90 days after your purchase. And so what happened is, customers had almost a guide or a Sherpa to take them through, point them to resources, making sure they weren't going to paint themselves into a box. But we didn't stop there. What we actually wanted to do was bring in our actual customer support reps from Zendesk to kind of say, I'm going to take a look at your setup and say, architecturally and process-wise, you're thinking about this and going about this in the kind of the best practice ways. So what that means was all of a sudden we have this validation. The customer has this validation that I'm thinking about customer support the way that Zendesk is thinking about customer support, which is a pretty big thing. What that also did for us internally was that validated that we actually have that we could actually take support data and kind of segment our customers into cohorts and create programs around the way that works. And so what we've done is kind of segmenting out and looking at customers' problems and tickets and the way things come in, about how it fits different types of customers based on spend, based on revenue, based on complexity of implementation, and kind of figured out, we have all these different ways to support those and can support at scale and can support at kind of a higher touch model as well. But we wanted to do it in a beautifully simple manner. So you heard Nickel yesterday talk about beautifully simple. Zendesk is very much about beautifully simple. Everything from our software, and it's woven into the fabric of our company. So from an approach standpoint, from a methodology, we kind of broke this down into kind of three kind of pillars around customer success. Launch, which I just talked about initially, was everything around sort of your initial implementation and make sure you kind of get set up and ready to go. Mentor pillar is essentially in layman's terms, would be optimization, right? We have a number of different programs that are underneath this, but the customer really shouldn't have to worry about that. All they should know is that this is where you fit if you're already a customer and you need to kind of get optimized. And then the elite pillar is when the customer is ready to be transformational and think about taking that next step, this is where we kind of fit in and you're ready for the elite program. This served us well on two fronts. The first one being that it's extremely easy for customers to consume and digest, and they kind of figure, okay, I'm not a new customer. I am an existing customer, so I fit in the mentor program. I'm ready to make that jump. I'm ready. I have the resources available to make that transformational leap so I can fit into the elite pillar. But this also made it really easy for our internal resources at Zendesk to consume. And a lot of times, I don't know how many people out there have problems kind of explaining to their sales org or to their success or to their support org or to finance or to the CFO who actually has to justify why you need customer success. It was very easy for them to kind of understand where we fit in the organization. So what are a couple of these actual takeaways that we have from here? I think that what we want to kind of convey is that we think support first, right? And then we build success kind of on the backside of that. And what that means is that we identify our problems. We use a lot of data. In fact, we rebuilt the platform a couple of years ago to track more data, understand how customers are using the system, understand where their problems are, where their bottlenecks are, and that kind of defined our programs. And so additionally, I think that we also, when we spun up Success, we had because we were born out of Success and it kind of went support organization, then a little bit of sales and spinning up customer success, it allowed us to define clear lines between what Success does and what support does, and even more importantly, define kind of what that collaboration piece looks like when we work together. Additionally, because we are so support focused at Zendesk, we encourage in customer success, it's actually mandated, that you actually spend time working with the customer support organization your first 2 weeks of hire. And so what we do is we put them on the front lines. A lot of times we'll put them in chat, make sure they're not overwhelmed. With a coach, from a support standpoint, someone coaching them as well. But we kind of put them in the shoes of the support rep, so they can kind of understand when a customer wants to or has a problem and we need to address it real time, and then take that knowledge about how that break-fix problem can be translated into how do we prevent this in the future. Second, let your data show you the way. So your data tells a lot, everything around kind of your customer's reality. There's a lot of information there. You've heard it both days today. That there's so much information. So actually, track your users, put them in the cohorts, put them into segments so you can kind of understand and break that data down, because there's a lot more in there than you actually think. And then, obviously, there's everything kind of a slicing and dicing around that, but the last point here is really kind of important around kind of setting up that one-on-ones with that success and support leadership. We do everything from looking at the top 50 tickets from our top 50 customers on a weekly basis and kind of sitting down with support to understand trends. And a lot of times those trends apply to smaller customers where we just don't hear that as loudly from the smaller customers. We still hear it. We hear it in tickets, but it might be kind of disconnected conversations. So it allows us to look for trends as well. And I think there's also another piece that we have in our success organization is we actually have liaisons within our success organizations. We have a liaison to product management, who's responsible for everything that we do, that sits in customer success and allows us to kind of create problem statements for everything like feature requests. Customers come with feature requests, so we write problem statements to kind of be the customer voice or customer advocate internally to product management. We also had that for marketing, right? So we own a lot of the customer marketing piece. So we actually work very closely with marketing. And what we're actually in the process of doing is setting that same sort of role up in our customer success organization that is actually that liaison to customer support. So can sit with the customer support organization, can have a higher touch on those trends and what we're seeing and how customers are affected. That collaborative piece in just kind of having that liaison to actually say, these are not two siloed channels to contact customers. They actually rely quite a bit on each other. And I think the last one is success can be complemented. It can be a complement and scale from there. A big piece of what we did is we didn't roll out a customer success organization and say, you need to be in this role. what we did was we built programs first based on support data, based on customer need, and then we kind of created the roles around that. And we're not done creating roles, and I don't want to have any role confusion here, but it really is about kind of the programs that we added to support our customers, and then kind of beyond that, we wanted to measure kind of consistently across the board. So we very much focus, we measure all our customer success programs and the way we deliver, whether that be launch or the mentor or the elite kind of programs we have in place with CSAT and NPS. So we measure them consistently across the board because that is what actually tells us the value that customers are receiving out of Zendesk. And then, nice, 0. All right, perfect. I'll leave these up here because the actual next slide is another video which won't work. So we're going to go from there.